Aloha, Drew. It's so great to see you. Thank you so much for making the time to speak to me today. I've been witnessing your journey in the past 2 years, and you're part of my survival mechanism throughout pandemic. You know, as a Samoan woman, I'm so proud to be doing this interview with you, and also just to witness your journey. Malo soifua, Drew.
Malole soifua, o mai oi.
Manuia whawhai o mai oi.
Lele.
That's right, Drew. Drew, thank you for meeting with me today. It's an extraordinary pleasure as a Samoan woman to speak to you, to witness your journey, and to see the value that your very scathing and unapologetic disruption of the patriarchy has been, it's been an absolute joy to watch.
Thank you.
But before we delve into your work, tell me a little bit about yourself and about your Samoan heritage, villages, and ties.
Okay, so I was born and raised in California, like in Southern California. Both my parents are Samoan. My dad's family is from Mapusaga Fou. My mom's family is from Tutuila and Savai'i too. So, I've been raised in a Samoan household my entire life. And I was raised with my, family. I was obviously, as Samoan people, we had lots of cousins and aunties and uncles. So it was really important to me to be close to my family, to be close to my culture, just to understand who I was. I don't think it was as easy when I was a child, just because I didn't grow up around going to school with lots of Samoan kids. I went to school with lots of kids of different ethnic backgrounds. And then I grew up and I went to high school. I met some more Samoan kids, and it's just the connection you have to each other is it's so much different than other ethnicities, obviously, but it was just really important to me to always stay close. And so I went to the University of Hawaii at Manoa when I graduated from high school. So I was a double major there in journalism and communications. And one of my biggest I guess pulls or draws to the University of Hawaii was getting to be around a lot more Polynesian people, because there just weren't that many in my high school. There was one family of Samoan kids, my family, and then one family of Tongan kids, and that was it. It was just us. So getting to go to UH and be with a lot more Polynesian people was something that I found very exciting, because I was I get to learn more about my culture and about other Polynesian cultures. So when I went to school at UH, I took Samoan language learning as a language learning class, which was really cool. And then I just got to, feel a lot closer, I guess, to my heritage. But when I went to college, it was really something, I guess, brand new for me, living away from my family. But I had so much Samoan family who live in Hawaii. So it was it's just kind of I left my family to go to my other family. It was a win-win, I think. And then now, once I graduated from college, it was really hard to get a job, because my emphasis was in sports journalism. So that's really what I wanted to do. My dad is a former NFL player, which I'm sure many Samoan kids can relate to. We all know at least one person that went to the NFL. So my dad used to play in the NFL. And, my brother plays football, all the men in my family that I look up to all play football. So I was just felt so drawn to sports. And I also felt a very strong connection to Samoan kids in sports. A lot of times I feel athletics are prioritized over academia for our culture specifically, because we're so athletic naturally. So I feel a lot of times academia is kind of put on the back burner a little bit, as long as they can perform athletically at a very top tier level. So when I was in college, I tutored football kids. I tutored Samoan kids a lot, because it was really important to me that they know school is just as important as sports, because if sports doesn't work out, at least you have something else. And that's what happened to my dad. It didn't last as long as he thought it would. And then he kind of had to start over. And I felt maybe if I didn't get into sports journalism, that was where my passion lied, was helping students, specifically like student athletes, get their degrees, right, and go into some kind of profession that doesn't have to be blue collar if they don't want it to be. And it doesn't have to be something that solely relies on your athleticism, because obviously there's a ticking clock on athleticism for all of us. So after I graduated from college, I took like my first job that I could get. It wasn't really what I wanted. But I was like, you know what, at least I got like, you know, something really high paying for someone my age at the time when I was like 21. And then I did that job for a couple of years. And then I finally got my opportunity to work for the NFL. So I thought like, oh, this is it for me. Like my dad went to the NFL. Now I'm going to go to the NFL. Like it's going to be perfect. It's just different. And then that job didn't work out nearly as well as I thought it was going to. It like kind of went down in flames, to be honest. But when I left the NFL, I think like 2 weeks later, the pandemic hit. And then when the pandemic hit, you know, everyone was at home, and my boyfriend encouraged me to start posting on TikTok. And then I started posting on TikTok. And then now like a year and a half later, here we are. So I like truly believe everything happens for a reason. So I think now, I used to think that was my dream, and that's what my purpose in life was going to be, was being like sports journalism. But now I know it's this is truly my purpose in life. So it's rewarding all around. It was just a long journey there, you know.
And thank goodness for that journey, because there's a lot of sports journalists. And this is a unique thing that you found for yourself. And essentially, you've found for all women of color, not just in the US, but also Polynesian women who take pride in the work that you're doing. Yeah. So thanks to your boyfriend. Seriously. But that sounds like such a fascinating history of you rediscovering your Polynesian heritage, trying to making sure that you're around that. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how much you know this, but a lot of the way, and I've watched hundreds of your videos just because I'm a feminist nerd, and I'm like, this is something that's happening right now, and you're in the middle of it. Your humor and the way that you approach the patriarchy is very Samoan. Yeah. But it's translated in English, which is why it's even more fascinating. Like, yeah, people are seeing the humor of a Samoan. Yeah. Like a very deeply intellectual Samoan who is like not taking anything, you know. So it's been fascinating to watch. So I'm sure you're aware of this, but you've taken feminism to a whole new level. Mm-hmm. And academic feminists who may take a while to recognize the value and contribution you're making to the field itself are probably trying to find a term for your approach. Mm-hmm. Your disruption, correction of the narrative and ideologies do not really fall within what they've defined. Yeah. And it's really definitions set by white feminists. Mm-hmm. So it's not necessarily in the heart of liberal feminism. It's not socialist feminism or radical feminism. In fact, it's really an approach in itself. So you're a brown feminist of the generation that essentially has zero, and this will be bleeped, cares to give anymore. What are your thoughts on this?
I honestly, I mean, what you said about it being almost like rooted in Samoan culture, like my approach, my humor, like my jokes, everything. It's so funny you say that, because every time people ask me, like, have you always been this way? Like, is this how you've always dealt with conflict or confrontation or whatever? I always say yes, because I grew up in a Samoan family. So like Samoan families, Polynesian families in general, like we love to make fun of each other. It's just something that we do. Like, it's just fun. It's never like pointed. It's never like something that will make you insecure. It like builds up a skin so that nothing ever hurts your feelings. That's why I always say it's not exclusive to me. Like, and I honestly credit my family entirely for why I'm the way I am now, because now I know like my worth doesn't come from anyone but myself, right? It just comes from the people that I love. and respect the most in the world, and me. Those are the only two facets that matter to me, which is why hate doesn't bother me literally at all, because I know who I am, right? So I'm very confident in who I am as a person, let alone as someone, woman. So I always say too, like, you cannot hurt my feelings. Like, you just can't. Like, you don't have my family.
You try.
Yeah, you could try, but you didn't grow up with my parents. You didn't grow up with my cousins. You didn't grow up with my siblings. Like, the way that we make fun of each other is just like, it's built like this armor almost, which makes, I think, it makes you funnier, right? It makes you like quicker, makes you have, it just makes you, gives you the ability to learn to laugh at yourself. Which I think is essential to doing any kind of comedy at all. Like, if you can't take a joke, you can't tell a joke. Like, there's just no way. So I loved that part. I just had to comment on that. But as far as like my approach to feminism, I talk about this a lot too, I think in pieces here and there, because obviously like my TikTok is more so for the laughs, not necessarily for like the nuanced conversations of my intersectional feminism, but that's, I think, truly where I lie, because I've made it very clear that there's a difference between like liberal white feminism and like truly intersectional feminism, which is where I like to proudly say I sit at the cross section of, because intersectional feminism confronts the ideology that it's feminism that helps all of us. It's not just like cis straight white women, it's all women. It's all encompassing. It includes Black women, it includes women of color, it includes trans women, it includes all of us, because honestly, that's the only way that it moves forward, is if we include everyone and we make sure we take everybody with us. That being said, like, my approach to it is obviously a lot different than what I think men are used to, obviously. But sometimes women too, because sometimes women are like, I don't know why you do it this way. Like, the way that you do it is so rude. Like, what makes you any better than them? And to that, I always say, a lot of times they are white women who say that. And I always say too, the reason why you feel that way is because you don't live in my shoes. Like, if you were truly an intersectional feminist, you would understand why I do it the way I do it. Because, to be honest, they're not going to listen to education. Like, that's just a fact. Like, they already inherently believe that women are inferior to them intellectually, let alone physically. So to think that if I was so educational, if I presented them with all these facts and all these findings, and I was like, this is why you shouldn't say this, this is why you shouldn't say this, none of it would matter, right? Literally none of it would matter, because they already feel that they're better than me just because of the fact that they identify as a man. So my approach is more so to humiliate you to the point where next time you want to post something, you're going to think, oh, wait, I probably shouldn't do this because she's on here. And it works. And that's kind of my point. Like, I've always said too, I've never said that I wasn't mean. I don't make funny jokes at your expense. I've never said that. And I said, in fact, like, I know for a fact that you're never going to change. Even if I sat down with you and I had a 2-hour-long conversation with you and I was like, hey, like, this is like why you shouldn't say this, is why it's harmful to say this. Even if I did all of that, none of it would matter. So my goal is not to change you. My goal is to embarrass you, so that the next time you want to post this, you're going to think twice. And that's the only thing that matters to me, that you leave, not that you change, because I can't change a bigot. Like, unless you're willing to unlearn all of the things that have been ingrained in us as kids, like growing up in a patriarchal society, unless you take the steps to unlearn all of those toxic ideologies, you're never going to change. So, like, that's on you. And I also think too, a lot of times, it's another puritanical belief in the patriarchy that women should always be patient and always be kind and understanding. Women should always offer you empathy. Women should always be quiet. Women should always be understanding. Like, you should give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, what if he doesn't know? Like, and I think that's why a lot of women and others gravitate towards me, because I don't do that. Like, I don't waste time doing that, because I know, and they know, that they're never going to change. Like, that's just not an option. That's not even on the table as an offering. It's just like, who can, I guess, make funnier jokes So that's the only real competition they're in with me, because I have zero interest in changing them because I'm not their mom. So it's not my job, you know.
Amen to that. Amen to that. No, I mean it's truly fascinating to watch and see the responses as well, both from men and women, both from men and women of color, just the different ways that they receive your approach.
Yeah.
So in my view, when when we're looking at it from a feminist ethics perspective, which is to understand, criticize, and correct, I feel like you are both criticize and correct. Not so much criticize, but correct in a really scathing Samoan jungle manner, which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
So, it sounds to me that you're not only grounded in your understanding of, your Samoan culture, your upbringing in the US as well, but you also have this really these strong feminist values, which really inform your work. In understanding that about you, how would you identify yourself in terms of the work that you're doing? You've mentioned comedy, and then you still have a journalistic kind of aspect to some of your videos of
Yeah.
your TikToks. So
Yeah.
how would you define who you are in that respect?
I guess, I mean, other than like just a very, very like aggressive intersectional feminist, other than that, I guess like my content, I guess you could categorize it as like social justice work. You could also categorize it as comedy. Obviously, it's funny and relatable, but I think it's rooted in something so much deeper, which is why I feel like so many people feel like it's honestly really humbling. But when people tell me I'm like making a huge difference on things like TikTok, for example, like just the absolute, just the knowledge that I exist on that app has completely shifted how some people choose to post content and what they choose to say because they're afraid of me. And I think that right there is kind of indicative of the movements that I've been trying to like platform and move forward, because obviously as like a woman of color, like I still have certain privileges that other marginalized groups don't. Like I'm a cis woman, I'm a straight woman. So those are all like privileges that I have that I can use to platform other marginalized groups like trans women, for example, like Black women, for example. And I can use my platform to further other ideologies and other like think pieces that I feel are so important. So like as like, for example, I'm not someone that I would identify as a fat person, but I stand up for fat people all the time. And I feel like sometimes these men are confused because they're like, well, why do you care? Like, you're not the person I was talking to, which is not what they say, but that's what they're thinking, right? And it's because I feel so passionately that if you're going to make jokes at the expense of marginalized groups, then you should be able to take jokes. And you're not marginalized. So turns out it's free game at that point. But like they only seem to care when I jump in and like start making jokes too. That's the only time it matters to them. And I also think too that the hate I receive in response to the shit or the work that I've been doing for so long on TikTok now would probably be a lot different if I looked different. So if I was like, I always say too, like if I was a straight white cis woman, if I was a thin white woman, would you feel this strongly about what I said, or would you listen to what I actually said? Like, because a lot of times they're like, you don't say anything of value, you just make fun of what they look like, blah, 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 which is not true. I make many points. You just only pick up the things that affect you personally, that you feel personally called out by, and then you hear nothing else. It's like selective hearing. So I always say, if I was a white man, if I was a man in general, if I was a white woman, if I was a thin white woman, would you feel this strongly about what I said, right? And the answer is probably no, because there are other women on there who do the same kind of things I do, just in a different way. And they're like thin white women, and they don't get half the vitriol that I receive every single day. Like, and it's because of what I look like. That's why I say all the time, like, we could just call it what it is. It's rooted in more than just misogyny. That's why I never feel bad when I make the videos that I do, because the men that I stitch are bigots in more ways than one. It's not just misogyny. They're racist too. They're homophobic, they're transphobic, like the list goes on and on. So the fact that they feel so boldly to call me a bully or call me someone who's like just as bad is kind of rich coming from them because you're a bigot. So it really doesn't mean much to me. I'm like, that a terrible person's calling me a terrible person. Okay, sure. Right. So that's why I would say a lot of times like my thing could be categorized as like social justice work as well. Because I do feel like I'm a very proud ally to many other communities that I may not myself be a part of, but I feel very like protective of them in a sense, I guess. So I guess I categorize it as like comedy, social justice work, feminism, intersectional feminism, all that stuff.
May I propose feminist icon, perhaps?
I mean, you said it, not me.
For your consideration. So, wow, this is just so fascinating. I've seen, and you're right, like the videos that you've done, I'm so old, I say video. The TikToks that you've done. Like you're not actually, a lot of it, you're not really targeting the person. You're like either mentioning something they're wearing or, the grammar. And so that's why I find it just absolutely fascinating because that's so someone.
Yeah.
Like, go clean your teeth, like
the most
like, I can't speak to you. It's
right.
It's so someone. But to see the way that Americans respond to that humor because you're translating it, it's really also educational, just purely from a nerdy perspective. And also seeing how it's definitely a movement that you created, especially on TikTok, because women are liberally tagging you on things that offend them. You've become sort of this guard almost, for decency and for the rightful treatment of women and equality. So I would pitch feminist icon at this point. Perhaps that's an accurate description. But you've mentioned this before, but I just want to touch on it before we end. You've risen and you've rose despite all of the trolling. One of my favorite videos you did recently was when you were at an event in LA and you were like, look, you brought me here. I love that. It's like, all the hate actually ended up proving your point. So despite all of the harassment, the online violence towards you, and you mentioned this before, what would your advice be for women who are constantly targeted just for existing as a woman?
I guess my advice would be more than anything is just to truly like understand that when men say terrible things to you online, it's more so a reflection of them than it is of you. And like, for example, men make fun of my weight and like my body all the time, and you can't even see it in any of my TikTok videos. I never show my body ever. So it just proves that they really don't care what you look like. They're just trying to hold something over your head and make you feel lesser than, because misogyny lies in this like thought process that women hold all of their worth and value in what they look like. So they think the meanest thing they could ever say to you is to call you fat and ugly. Like that's going to get to you the most, because they believe women are vapid and women don't have any value outside of aesthetics. And there are many other things, aside from the fact that I don't think I'm ugly at all. There are many other things that I hold in much higher regard about myself than my looks, because looks fade and beauty is subjective. So it really doesn't matter when someone who you doesn't pay your bills, doesn't make money for you, doesn't keep the roof over your head, doesn't provide for you in any way, shape, or form. It really shouldn't matter when their words are said to you and they're horrible and violent and vitriolic, like in their very nature. Like it means nothing to me because they mean nothing to me. Like, if that makes sense. These people have never met me and know nothing about me other than the fact that they just hate the words that are coming out of my mouth because they feel attacked in some way. And I feel like when you truly believe that like you don't care about anyone's opinion other than the people you love and respect the most in this world, then it doesn't matter. Like it will roll right off you, because men like that are just mad because they're unhappy and they hate themselves more than they hate anybody else. And I feel like a lot of times men are conditioned to believe like, oh, someone who looks a certain way should hate themselves, right? So if they look that way, like for example, there's a lot of fat phobia intertwined in our society just because it is what it is. But like you're conditioned to believe that fat people are unlovable and are not worthy of respect or any sort of humane treatment in any way. So if you yourself are a fat person and you hate yourself, and then you see someone else who's also a fat person but does not hate themselves, it really triggers something in their brain, because they're thinking to themselves, I've been told my whole life that I should hate myself if I look like this. How come this person doesn't? And it makes them upset to the point where they come online and they're like, I literally hate you the most. Like, you're the worst person I've ever met in my entire life. Like it's always just projection. That's what it's centered in. And that's why I always say too, like, I'm a Virgo. I don't know if you care about astrology, but I love astrology. But I'm a Virgo sun, I'm a Cancer moon. My Cancer moon means I feel so deeply the emotions of others, which is why I think I feel so protective over all these different women, all these different marginalized groups, because I feel so strongly that their plights are important, and I want to be able to help them. But that also comes with a little asterisk, because I don't care about anything, any sort of mistreatment from people that don't mean anything to me. So like, if I don't love you personally, if I don't respect you personally, I don't care about your words. That's just like a fact. So I just think if you just hold that true, like if you hold that so dear and close to yourself, like I know who I am and this person doesn't, and that's why they're upset. If you just tell yourself that over and over and over again, like affirmations, then eventually you're going to start to believe it, because it's true. Like these men, they don't mean anything. They don't mean anything, and they're not paying your bills. So they're even more worthless.
Thank you for giving me the signature Drew laugh at the end there.
Oh, you're so welcome.
So just a final thing regarding your dad,
Yeah.
you know, and the influence he's had on your life.
Yeah.
Because there is, you know, I have a son and I have a daughter, and my daughter derives a lot of her influence from her father. I wonder if you can speak to that relationship and influence you had with her dad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of times the men who hate me, they like to say like, oh, fatherless behavior. That's like a joke that one of them made up, and now they just ride it forever. But the irony is that my dad is one of the like many men in my family that I have truly admired and looked up to growing up. And honestly, my dad is the reason why my standards were so high before I started dating my boyfriend now. Because my dad, I've seen how my dad treats my mom. You know what I mean? I've seen how my dad takes care of me and my sister and my brother. I've seen it firsthand. I was raised in it, like the just all-encompassing love. Like my dad is so emotionally cognizant, like he's so empathetic and so like just understanding and loving, like he leads with love more than anything. So to be raised by a man like that, who not only takes care of my mom emotionally, like provides for her, they really met in the middle. Like, and I think a lot of times people don't know that, like in Samoan culture, like a lot of times men do a lot of the cooking and cleaning, because women take care of the kids and the elderly. So that's kind of like, it's just ingrained in our culture. But my dad cooked and cleaned just as much as my mom did. My dad worked just as much as my mom did. Like they were a team, they were partners. There wasn't like a hierarchy in there. And we're also a very matriarchal culture as well. So we hold women in such high regard in a lot of our families, which is why sometimes when I have to stitch Samoan dudes, I'm a little disappointed, because I'm like, there's no way your mom knows you're making this. There's no way. If you got an older sister, there's no way she knows you made this. Like, I think that all the time, because it's just true. That's just how I was raised. So I have like my dad, my dad's brother, my uncle, my grandfather, like these are all men that I've respected and held in such high regard. So my standards were so high from like the minute I started getting interested in dating. I knew exactly what I wanted because I've seen how my dad treats my mom. So that's why I held out for it. And now I'm with a Samoan man who treats me just as good as I've always wanted, if not better. Like he not only met my expectations, but he exceeded them. So that's kind of ironic that men try to say that I never had a father figure. That's why I feel this way. No, I had the best father figure. That's why I feel this way. That's why so many women tell me that they never thought that they would like, they should hold their standards high because they've been conditioned to believe like you should just take what you can get. Like if you hold them high, you're never gonna meet anybody, you're gonna die alone. First of all, would that be so bad at this point? Probably not, right? But like also to that's not true. Like the bar is truly in hell. So like when you hold it high, someone will meet it. Not many, but someone will. Someone will eventually get there, and then you're gonna have everything you've ever wanted. All the love and respect you've wanted in a relationship is going to be afforded to you, not because it's reciprocal, but because it's just what they want to do. They just want to treat you exactly the way you deserve to be treated. So my dad was a huge influence on why I am the way I am today. And I'm just like, my sister is a lot more demure than me. She's not as confrontational as me, but we're the same when it comes to standards, like exactly the same. I'm just a lot more vocal about it. So my dad and many of the other men that I've grown up with are huge influences as to why I'm the way I am today. If anything, you should thank him. And honestly, my dad watches my videos and sometimes tells me I should be meaner. So there you go.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. And thanks to your dad and all the amazing men who influenced you to be who you are. And more importantly, the women who raised you as well. And you're so
Absolutely.
right. Our culture places women above men.
Yeah.
Traditionally, historically, Nafanua, our warrior princess, throughout our history, it's women who've led the fight.
Yeah.
And I see that. And so now we have Drew. So let's keep it going. Drew, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Do you have any final words you want to share?
I just want to say that I've been blessed with many things because of this platform. One of the greatest things I've received was being held in as like, or almost like revered as like a hero for like my Polynesian community, specifically my Samoan people. I'm just so proud to be a Samoan woman. So like to be interviewed by another Samoan woman who's so smart and so in tune and so socially aware is just like, it's an honor. Like it truly is. Like I've just, nothing's better to me other than being able to like provide for myself and my family, is getting to be representation for other Samoan women. Like that like makes me cry. Oh, it makes me emotional because I just I just love my Samoan people so much. So it's like an honor. It truly is to be representation. It's so important in media. So the fact that I'm someone who can be like a role model for other Samoan girls like makes me so emotional. It makes me very happy. So thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Drew. Ia avea ele nei taimi o tuawhai tu ia te oe, ia ona o le whaavano ko ilo taimi tātarano ai. I'm grateful that you do what you do, and as a Samoan woman, I am very proud of you and the work that you continue to do. And every time you raise your hand with that sacred tattoo that you have on there, which is connected to our sacred leg tattoo. So I have the leg tattoos.
You do?
I need to get that done.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to the day. Do you have your malu yet?
I don't actually. I'm kind of scared.
So I'll pick you up.
Okay, perfect. You can hold my hand.
Just be ready.
Perfect.
But such a great pleasure. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it so much. It's been an honor. So, Savai'i and Mapusaga Fou.